Hey everyone, welcome to Poetry Day 6. Today we're going to explore how alliteration and onomatopoeia function in poems. Before we start, you might want to either take out some of your poetry or open the files that you've saved your poems in. We're going to review. So in the past lessons, we've thought about sensory details, personification, onomatopoeia, rhyme, and repetition in our poems, as well as what the poems look like on the page. So what's an interesting sensory detail that you've written already? Think about that, or look on your work. Did you find it? So I'm just going to go through these questions, and I'll give you time to look on your own. What sounds have you intentionally included? What decisions have you made about what a poem looks like on the page? Where's a place you used repetition? Why did you choose to repeat those words? Poets often make very intentional choices about every detail of their work, down to the way the poem is shaped, how many lines are in each stanza, whether or not they want to use traditional conventions in writing as far as punctuation and capitalization, whether they want their words to rhyme, what type of sounds they want to use, whether they want to give non-human things human qualities, right? Repeating words over and over again for effect so the reader can understand the poem better. All of these things are choices that poets make when they're writing, and they all play an important role. Today we're going to read a poem called Gentle Sound of Rain by Lee Emmett. As I read, think about what do you notice about how the poet writes about the rain? What rhyming words do you notice? Why do you think the poet included so many words that include the sh sound? What sound at the beginning of words do you notice over and over? Okay, so let's hear this poem by Lee Emmett. Gentle sound of rain, in puddles plopping, pings metal corrugations, dripping and dropping. Swishing and rushing, gushing into gutters, gurgling in downpipes, running water sputters. Pushing into crevices, washing window panes, dashing down driveways, flushing out drains. Splashing onto roads, spatters parked cars, forms scatter patterns like pock-marked Mars. Crashing to crescendo, a brassy cymbal's roar, cacophony on roof, deafening downpour. What do you notice about how the poet writes about the rain? Think about it for a minute. Well, did you notice words like dripping and dropping and pings and plopping? How about the fact that the poem starts with gentle rain, right, with the gentle sound of rain, And as the poem goes on, the rain becomes more intense, right? At the very end, crashing to a crescendo, cacophony on the roof, which is like an unpleasant, loud sound, deafening downpour. Whoa. So this rain started light, got really heavy. And the words that the poet uses, like swishing and rushing, right? What sound at the beginning of words do you notice over and over? So these words, swishing and rushing, sound like rain, like a rainstorm. So here's some vocabulary. Corrugations are ridges or grooves. If you've noticed, like metal roofing, sometimes on sheds, it's got this like wavy pattern to it. That's called corrugated roofing or corrugated sheets. Crevices are small, narrow openings, something like maybe you'd see in a glacier, right, where the ice parts, and there are like these deep but narrow openings in the ice in the glacier. Pockmarked, something that is covered in marks or holes. This poet uses that word to refer to Mars, so thinking of like craters on Mars. Crescendo is a musical term which means to increase the loudness of something. Cacophony is a funny word that means unpleasant sounds, right, that are usually loud. And deafening, right, extremely loud sound. Let's read it again. I'm just going to read it out loud from here, because in the video, it doesn't let me go back a slide, which I don't understand. Let me just read it from here. Okay, so you'll just listen this time. Gentle sound of rain and puddles plopping, pings metal corrugations, dripping and dropping. Swishing and rushing, gushing into gutters, gurgling in downpipes, running water splutters. Pushing into crevices, washing window panes, dashing down driveways, flushing out drains. Splashing onto roads, splatters parked cars, forms scattered patterns like pockmarked Mars. Crashing to crescendo, a brassy cymbal's roar, cacophony on roof, deafening downpour. So the repetition of P and D in this poem, it's called alliteration. And poets use alliteration to make poems sound like what they are about, in this case, rain. Repetition of beginning sounds can be really helpful in giving your poem a certain cadence or rhythm. It's very rhythmic, and it helps you, the reader, understand kind of the sound that the poem is making. So examples of alliteration: puddles plopping, dripping and dropping, gushing into gutters. So notice that those have the same letters at the beginning of the words. Dashing down driveways, right? Dashing down driveways. Crashing to crescendo. Deafening downpour. Okay? Alliteration is the repetition of the first letter of the word. Onomatopoeia is the use of words that sound like what they are describing. So gurgling and splashing, right? Those are sound words, gurgling and splashing. So onomatopoeia and alliteration can go together if you just have the initial sound of the word repeating. Okay, those are the main things that we're going to focus on today. So I want you to think about the sounds of your words and try to include repetition, alliteration, and onomatopoeia to help the reader imagine what the poem is about. So you're going to start in an ideas section for today's poetry, and I wrote down repetition, alliteration, onomatopoeia as a way for me to stay on track and remember things that I need to include. Don't forget to focus on all of the elements that we've learned so far, right? The form of your poem. What is the shape like? Focusing on stanzas. Do your stanzas have the same amount of lines in them? Right? Are you using rhyming words? Are you repeating words or phrases over and over again? How are you using onomatopoeia or sound words? What type of rhyme, what type of rhythm does your poem have? Reading out loud really indicates what kind of rhythm your poem has. And what kind of creative words can you use? Right? Try and really think of things that are more unusual. Okay, so I had an idea for a poem of maybe somebody knocking on a door, and at the end, they kind of get frustrated because they've been knocking on this door and nobody's answering, so they leave. But there actually was somebody there. They just, I don't know, maybe they were in the backyard or something. By the time they heard the door, or thought they heard the door, the person was gone. So here's my poem. And you can see some of the edits that I made. For one example, I started with knock, knock, knock on the door. That's alliteration. But those are also sound words, so that's also onomatopoeia. And then I say a pause patiently, which is also like alliteration, right? Because I'm using that same initial letter over and over again. I made an edit in the second stanza from knock, knock, knock to smack, smack, smack. So thinking of the rain poem, I thought that the knocking of the door, or the sound of the knocking on the door, would get louder each stanza. So I went from knocking to smacking, and then the person that's knocking on the door is then looking around, loomingly. So then they knock a third time, thud, 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 so it's gotten louder. A last effort, emphatically, which means for emphasis, right? They're really trying to see if that person's home. And then eventually somebody responds, "Who's there? Hello?" And they're like, I must be hearing things, right? Okay, so it's called Visitor. Knock, knock, knock. A pause, patiently. Smack, smack, smack. A look, loomingly. Thud, thud, thud. A last effort, emphatically. Who's there? Hello? I must be hearing things. So that's my poem for today. Remember, you don't have to just write one poem. You can write as many poems as you like every day. Just the more practice you get in, the better. I hope that you're enjoying writing your poetry, and I look forward to reading what you come up with today. Have a great day. Bye.